Good afternoon. Welcome to the Land Buyback Program for Tribal Nation Updates session. If you have been involved with the foundation or the Tribal Land Staff National Conference at all in the past several years, you will find today's presenter familiar. His name is Julius Snell. He is a Senior Advisor of Tribal Relations for the Land Buyback Program in the Department of the Interior. Today, he's going to take you through a few updates and accomplishments about the program itself. And as always, we request that you put any comments or questions in the chat so that way Julius can respond over the webinar program today or follow back up with you depending on the kind of time that we have. So please do use the chat feature. As you may have heard, the session is recorded. We record every session. So this session will be online on the ILTF Vimeo account probably sometime next week. And we'll be sending out after this session and with this video link, an evaluation. And please do visit that evaluation link. Provide some good feedback for us. I know the presenter would love to receive some constructive, positive feedback, and we would love to do that too, so that we can continue to create high quality programming for you and our colleagues across the continent. So again, the chat feature at the bottom there is a perfect source for communicating with both myself and Julius. And if you have any questions, please put them there. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the baton to Julius Snell, who will be presenting for us today. Julius.
Hello, thank you, Nick. Like Nick said, my name is Julius Snell. I work with the Land Buyback Program for Tribal Nations here in Reno, Nevada. But behind me, you'll see Pyramid Lake, Paiute Indian Reservation, which is about 40 miles north, and have giant trout. So I like to go there a lot and fish. Unfortunately, it's closed, or at least the fishery part's closed because of the heat, and gives the fish a chance to recover. So today we're going to be talking about updates about the program, just to give you guys an idea of what we've done, what we're currently still doing, and hopefully have somebody on from the BIA to talk about the potential future of land consolidation within the department. So hopefully you can see my screen. Not sure of how all the controls work. So if you see a chat or have a question, I'll see if I can get to that or have Nichlas or somebody else assist me with that. But thank you for coming or attending, logging in, I guess. Let's do a quick introduction and then get to the presentation. So like Nick said, I'm a Tribal Relations Advisor for the program. I've been here since 2014. Originally was in DC and then moved to Reno sometime after that, and been working from home since then, and was traveling out to a lot of the reservations to meet with the tribes. But of course, that's was put a stop to for now. Hopefully we'll get back out there at some point. So my job is basically working with the tribe to serve as a liaison between the tribe and the department and our federal partners, departmental partners, like appraisals, Division of Minerals evaluations, formerly OST, BTFA, what else we work with, BLM, the BIA. And so my job is to talk with the tribes, meet with them, let them know what's going on. I was also engaged in landowner outreach when we did travel out, but we're not obviously doing that now, traveling out and having events, but still conducting outreach the best we can to the landowners so that when they do get offers, we are still sending offers out. Currently have offers out now. So still trying to get information to the landowners the best we can, but of course they can always call the trust beneficiary call center that BTFA has, 800 number, or talk to folks in their local area, local agencies. And then I also work within the program, work on different policy and processes just to keep the program going and operating in a good manner. So that's my background. Navajo, my mom's Navajo, my dad's Choctaw Cherokee. And have been, prior to the program, I worked with the BIA in DC and Realty Services. And that was starting in 2012. So let's see if I can go here to the next slide. I'm going to have to cut off my video so I can see my screen, but hopefully you'll still hear me. So this is the presentation outline. So I'll talk about fractionation in general, go through some program background and results, just to give you an idea of what we've been doing. If you're not familiar with the program, this will give you some quick background. But as you'll hear, we're ending soon, within a year and a half. And then some potential opportunities on consolidated land for tribes. So on the webinar, we have a few tribal leaders, some federal departmental folks from DOI, and then landowners, tribal land or Indian landowners, and tribal land staff. So we have a variety of folks on the line today. And so I just wanted to talk about some things for the tribes, and answer any questions you guys might have about that. Then just the program current status, wind down, how we're ending the program essentially, and then following the program, just basically what the department has in store to hopefully continue land consolidation, and then talk about our schedule and hopefully get some feedback from folks. So here we just want to do a couple of polls. So Nick, if you could launch the first question. So here, I'm not sure how it works on your end, but I assume you have some buttons you can click. So on average, how many different tracts does each landowner own an interest in? So just meaning, I'm a landowner and I own, what we've seen is that people own on different reservations, different tribes are related or, have been closely related in the past or just next to each other. And so, as people inherit lands, they inherit in different places. So you can take a guess on how many, or maybe you own land and, you can think about how many you own in to answer the question. So I'll just give it a couple or more minutes to, or not a minute, a few more seconds before we go to our next question. Nick, can people see the results now, or how do we see the results?
Let's see if we end polling, they may be able to see some results.
Okay, let me just wait another second. Looks like people are still voting or choosing their answer. It's like people are putting a lot of thought into it. No cheating, you can't Google. Just have to go with your gut. Okay, I think that's good. You're at it. And okay, so it looks like 8 had the most answers, 39%. And then 4, 16. Okay, let's go to the next one. On average, how many landowners own interest in an individual tract? So this talks about, or is asking about each individual tract, and what's the average number of landowners that are on there. So basically, what's the fractionation on average of each tract?
Julius, it looks like we have a question in the chat. Participant is asking how to define tract.
Oh, sorry. So a tract of land is what's been allotted. So if you're not familiar, the reservations, in the beginning were just one big piece of land with boundaries. And then there was the Dawes Act, or various allotment acts for various reservations that cut those the larger reservation into tracts of land. So, the landowner or the person might get 40 acres, 160 acres, 320 acres as their particular allotment. So it varies. Some are, 2.5 acres or an acre now. But the tract just refers to the land that is now fractionated within the reservation boundaries. Okay, so yeah, go ahead and show the answers. So not sure why some are red and some are blue, or orange. Oh, they're tied, I guess. So 31% of the folks thought it was 25. 31 thought it was 35. And then some 5, 15. Okay, let's go to the next one. So the BIA is separated into various regions that have, the various tribes under or within them. And so this question is just asking where the most fractionated interests are by region. So just give a guess of what you think. You might have to scroll down to see some other options. Okay, go ahead, show the screens or the answers. So the highest one, okay, that's why it shows orange. So the highest one's Great Plains, 24% of the folks. Yeah, so I guess we can stop sharing the results and I'll get to the answers. So the answers are at the bottom, but this is just explains or talks about some of the challenges of fractionated land. So there's over 100,000 tracts that have program eligible fractional interest that are held in trust by the department. So, like I was saying, these tracts, these 100,000 tracts can be 1 acre, half an acre, 320 acres. It just varies. And you can see this map on the right. That's the 36 north, 47 west is showing a township and range. And that square is, let's say, 6 by 6 miles. I have to think about that. But a large area. And so you can see there's various sizes of tracts of land. So the different colored squares are just showing a tract of land. So some are small, some are big. You can see the legend down below about what each of those are. And then so this isn't all the tracts, but just an example. And over 30,000 of the tracts have 20 or more owners. So about 30% are pretty highly fractionated. And so that makes it a challenge to lease out the land, or if you're a landowner wanting to get a lease for a house, you have to get the consent of all the other landowners. Or if you want to partition, meaning split up the tract of land, then again the owners have to agree and provide that consent, and do other things to get it partitioned. I'm not sure exactly what all those things are. We can talk more to BIA about that if you're interested. But here's the answer. So on average, each landowner owns an interest in 8 different tracts. And then on average, each tract has 25 different owners. However many landowners there are, some of them may own just on one reservation, or if they've inherited from different parts of the family, could own on different reservations. And then on average, they're pretty fractionated, so 25 different owners. And then just more about this map. You can see the gray. This basically is just an example of what people refer to as a checkerboard area of land. A lot of reservations that are fractionated or allotted look like this. So you have tracts that are 0% tribal ownership. So it's it could either be one individual or one or more individual trust or restricted owner. And then the kind of a little bit darker blue, there's some tribal ownership. A lot of this comes from the program's purchases, or the tribe just had some on there from some other mechanism in the past. Definitely the larger ones, greater than 50 to less than 100%, are due to tribal or program purchases. And then you see some with the hash marks. Those are 100% tribal ownership after the program purchases. So I'm not sure what the tribe owned before that, but after the program was completed there, some of these got up to 100% tribal ownership. And so you can see the gray as 100% tribal ownership. So if you're familiar with the Navajo reservation, a lot of the Arizona side is tribal land. So it doesn't have these, I mean, there's a few, but it doesn't, for the most part,
it's 100% tribal land, so tribal leases, for housing. They do home sites, 1 acre home sites that folks can apply for and hopefully get. And then on the New Mexico side, it looks more like this, what they call the checkerboard area. Then you see some white spots in there. So those are typically fee land. So they're out of individual or tribal trust and just, owned, and, the tribe or, anyone could go and purchase if they're for sale, and obviously have the funds. But this is just an example of what fractionation does, and also makes it difficult. So if the tribe, is trying to do something across this particular area of land, or even people or landowners, a broadband, right of way, water, or just doing home sites. If we have to cross the boundaries of the tracts, it makes it difficult to get those consents. And for tribes to know exactly what is going on or who are the landowners. A lot of times the landowners move and the department doesn't have a good address for them, so that can make it difficult to get landowner consent as well. So here is the answer to the other question. The Great Plains, which includes like Pine Ridge, Rosebud, Cheyenne River, Standing Rock, those large reservations in the Dakotas into Nebraska, have the largest number of landowners that or interest holders. And then, roughly a third of the fractional interest. So you can see on the left-hand side, the percent, there's 2.4 million total fractional interest. And, a third of those are at the Great Plains or, within those tribes that I mentioned. And then a third of the equivalent acres. And so the equivalent acres, down at the bottom, you can see the 5.8 million, but equivalent acres is just the interest times the tract acreage. So the tract, the tract of land, let's say it's 40 acres and somebody owns 10%. So that would be 4 equivalent acres. So that person, a lot of people say, oh, I own, if they own a really tiny percent, they'll say, oh, I own a spoonful of this particular tract. So no, you actually don't own a spoonful of the tract because we don't know which spoonful it is within that tract. And so, you could just multiply the interest times the tract acreage, and that's your equivalent acres. But the tract isn't split up like that. So there's no 4 acres that you could point to and say, those are mine. Unless everybody got together and agreed to partition, then you could partition down to your 4 acres. But as it is, you own an interest in a particular tract, and you're entitled to, say, if there's income on there, 10% of that income that comes in off of that tract, and that's what gets put into your IM account. The next largest, as far as equivalent acres, meaning land areas, Rocky Mountain. So that's places like Blackfeet or the tribes in Montana, CSKT, Rocky Boys, although Rocky Boys doesn't have a lot of fractionated tracts, or any, I'm not sure. Fort Belknap, Peck, and then get into the other ones. So Navajo, obviously big, but it doesn't have the percentage, even though it's by itself, that Great Plains has all together. Then you can see Southwest, out of Albuquerque, a lot of the pueblos in New Mexico, and not a lot of allotted land there. So thanks for participating. Hope that was interesting and informative, but that's just to give you an idea of the numbers regarding fractionation. So here I already talked about some of the challenges. So on the right-hand side, just the original allottee, like I said, it was originally a reservation, and then, various allotment acts provided boundaries and acreage to a particular person. And then as that person passes away and it goes to their heirs, here we're just assuming 3 heirs per generation. So after the 6th generation, you can get up to 243 landowners or interest holders. But we've seen, there's tracts with 1,000 different owners on it. So obviously it's going to be very difficult to do anything as far as leasing with that particular tract of land. So just in general, it's challenging to manage or to do if you want to do, or if the tribe wants to do some large scale economic or land development, can make it difficult. Also just difficult to protect or access sacred or cultural areas that the tribe, that are important to the tribe. And then if you're a landowner, you've probably seen this, that the income becomes so divided that it's, can be, a few pennies that you get from the lease, once a year or whatever. And so that's just another thing that happens when you have fractionated lands. So this program was part of the Cobell lawsuit that Eloise Cobell started. There was another section of the settlement that paid landowners directly. So if you are a landowner, you probably got some payments, not sure how long ago, 6-10 years ago or so, that paid you directly. And then another portion of the settlement agreement was the land consolidation component. And so that's what enabled the land buyback program to exist, is that there was $1.9 billion as part of that consolidation fund to purchase fractional interests. So, we couldn't buy 1/1 or just single owner tracts. Had to be at least 2. One could be the tribe, and then somebody else could be a trust or restricted landowner or interest holder. So buying fractional interest and tract or restricted land, so no fee land, no single owner, no fee land, at fair market value from willing sellers. So it's voluntary. You didn't have to sell if you didn't want to. Within a 10-year period, which began in 2012. And part of this, or what this program does, is purchase those fractional interest and turn it into trust interest for the tribe once it's purchased. So that's what it means, consolidating the interest restored to tribal trust ownership. And then under the settlement, the program must conclude by November 24, 2022. And so that's a year, 3-4 months away. And you'll see that we still have some funding available that we're still trying to consolidate additional lands. I'll talk about that a little bit. So the Cobell settlement was for individual landowners, individual interest holders. It wasn't a tribal settlement. Tribes have their own lawsuits, against the department as a tribal entity, and the Cobell was focused on the individuals. So I did have a question earlier about restricting sales to particular tracts, because some of the landowners are wanting to sell and turn that, get their money from the department and turn those interest into tribal trust interest. But some of the family that own also on the tract want to, be able to purchase or buy those interests and buy them out and not. So, one landowner saying, don't offer on this tract that I own on, because other people might want to sell their interest and I want to buy them. So no, we can't do that. We can take it into account. Maybe the tribe may want to argue or provide a recommendation not to purchase those interest. But this, like I was saying, this settlement agreement is for the individual landowners. And so if they want to sell, if we're able to offer on that particular tract and want to sell, that's up to them. The appraisals are available for the different landowners on that particular tract. If you own a tract, you can get your statement of value through the Trust Beneficiary Call Center, the TBCC, and work with your local BIA to make offers to those particular landowners. But again, it's up to them if they want to sell to you or sell to the essentially the department and turn it over to the tribe. But that co-owner purchases is a possibility. But this settlement agreement is for the individuals, not for the tribe. And so, we try to give the individuals as much opportunity to sell if they want. And that's why the appraisals are also available, because we know there's other things that folks might want to do with it. Maybe, if it's just for, family members that all want to, keep it within the family somehow, hopefully they can do that. But it's, up to the individual how they want to get rid of their interest, sell it, gift deed it, sell it to the tribe or sell it to another individual co-owner. So that's how that's handled. So some of the results, so we've, I said we had the 1.9 billion, 1.555 billion of that was set aside for land purchases to pay the landowners directly. And then another, I think, 285 million for the implementation costs, so paying for things like my salary, the appraisals, sending out the offers. So all those things were in the implementation part of the fund. And then there was another scholarship fund, 60 million that's been paid out for some time now. So with that, we were able to purchase 1 million fractional interest and more than 2.8 million equivalent acres transferred to the tribes. So these acres that are transferred, they can be, there's different resource codes attached to the tracts. It could be the surface only, could be the mineral only, where at some point in the past, the minerals and surface were separated, or both, where the surface and minerals are still together. Some people ask us, they have a both tract, but they want to keep the minerals, but we can't separate them in the offer. We're offering on, just what's available and what's been appraised. So we can't separate those out. And then purchase from more than 75,000 landowners at 53 locations in 15 states. So it has been a large undertaking. I think at the beginning, there was maybe some doubt that it would, the department would be able to accomplish this. But I think we've done a good job of, not, spending all the implementation fund on implementation, not just spending the money on salaries or office space or just, kind of whatever. We tried to be frugal with the money that was available, because we're able to transfer that unused implementation funds to the purchase portion. And so we've done that. 90 million has been transferred, and we've already spent the 1.555 billion that was originally allocated. And so now we're spending essentially the implementation portion on purchases. Sorry. So the impact is that we've reduced fractionation by 39% at 53 locations. These program eligible interest, that just means, we're not buying interest that are in probate, joint tenancy, life estate, somebody that's not able to make decisions on their own, minors. So there are other interests out there that we, didn't focus on. So this is what the program eligible means. So we've increased tribal ownership in over 50,000 tracts. And there's now 160% more tracts that have at least 50% tribal ownership. So meaning the tribe, now that they're the majority owner, a lot of the land that we appraise as ag or range. And so if there is, greater than 50%, the tribe can now provide those consents for the leases. And then just some other impacts or results: reduce fractionation by 65% at Crow, 68% at Blackfeet. And at Blackfeet, this greater than 50% tribal ownership increased by more than 1,800%. And the tracts, the total tract, not the equivalent acres, is nearly 325,000 acres. And that 1.555 billion that's been provided to the individuals, or because they sold their interest, has contributed more than 2.7 billion in economic output, supporting approximately 16,200 jobs nationwide. And so we have an office of the department, the Office of Policy Analysis, that was able to run these numbers. We provided them information about what's been sold, or the money that's been provided to the landowners, and they were able to run this analysis for us and get this information. So there's just a chart of the results. The 2.8 million equivalent acres consolidated, you can see in the beginning, and then as we get to 2021, we have a slide about what's remaining, but did want to provide a couple of stories about the results. And so the idea of the program was to consolidate the interest, return it to tribal trust, and then but there have been some because of this money that was provided within the settlement that landowners could decide to sell, there has been some positive results from that as well. And so one, creating a financial safety net for their families. So one particular person was whereabouts unknown, meaning we didn't have, or the department, BTFA didn't have a good address for that particular person. But we try to find these people as best we can to get them, make sure they get their offer. Probably they just didn't, a lot of people don't know what they own, they inherit, and just aren't paying attention, or get things in the mail, but maybe don't know how to read them. So we try to do as much landowner education as possible and find these folks. And so this particular person had a $2,000 balance in their IM account, individual Indian money account, and the offer of $52,000. And so this person was previously incarcerated, and so that's probably why we didn't have a good address for them. But then found the person, and then thought the money would help them get their life on track, pay their bills, and have a safety net for their family. So that was just one positive result. Paying student loans, and there were 3 elders who all received $10,000 program offers, and then all decided to sell their interests back to the tribe. And then one planned to give the money to their daughter to help pay down student loan debt. So just people putting the money to good use, and hopefully that's what happens. Another one, paying medical bills. A person accepted an offer of $11,000 to pay medical bills and get a birthday present for their daughter. So BTFA helped set up a direct deposit so they could get their funds faster and eliminate the risk that a check could get lost in the mail. And so if you are an individual landowner with an IM account, you want to make sure or understand how your account is set up, so that hopefully you have direct deposits or some other ways to get the money electronically, because if a check gets mailed, and it happens, it's rare, but it happens, checks get lost, and it takes a long time to get that check back and get you paid. So you just want to be aware of how your account is set up with BTFA. So here is, like I said, once the land or the interest are transferred to the tribe can become a majority owner or just own some interest that helps them provide the lease consent. And then tribes may also receive the lease income from consolidated interest. So there are some tribes that have passed resolutions to use the income from these program related purchases and use that income, set it aside for additional land purchases, or they just have it in their trust accounts with BTFA and can use it for whatever they need or want. So this is just some that some tribe may not be aware. Might want to talk to your local BIA and get more information. So there's a link. If you're not familiar with the people, maybe you don't live nearby, there's a link. And this slide deck will also be emailed to you after this presentation, so you'll have the links as well. So here's the current status of what's remaining. So as of the beginning of July, we have about 108 million left from the 1.9 billion. And this, like I was saying, there's a land purchases portion, there's an implementation portion. So the land purchases, we've surpassed the 1.555 billion, getting close to 1.6 billion. And then we have about 50 million in the land purchase portion of the fund. And then implementation cost, we spent a little less than 50% of the 285 million that was allowed for the implementation cost. And like I said, we transferred 90 million so far of that 285 million, and we're using that to make purchases now before the program ends. So that's what's remaining. So as we end, this is kind of just what's happening, or what we think will happen over the next year, a little over a year. That we still have money remaining to purchase funds or purchase interest, and so we're still sending out offers. Still have a few more reservations on the schedule to hopefully spend the remaining funds. The problem is, but what's going to happen at the end of the 10 years, to November 24, 2022, whatever's remaining returns back to the Treasury. And so the money wasn't provided to spend until we don't have it anymore. I don't know why it was put in like that in the settlement agreement, but that's just what we have to deal with. And so we're trying to spend the money effectively and as efficiently as possible to benefit tribal communities. And as we're running out of funds, some of you received an offer in the past. You may have sent it back, and the money may have came pretty quickly. But that's because we were able to have that opportunity to do that because we had enough of the funding. But as we are running low on the funds, we have to wait what we're calling contingent offers to approve those offers. So if you do get an offer in the future, it'll take longer to receive your funding than it had in the past if you received offers in the past. And then we wait until a certain amount of time and then review as they come in, but then figure out how much we need to approve those offers and get the landowners paid. And then we'll make that money available. And then BTFA will put that into the various accounts. And so currently have either a 60-day offer period or a 45-day offer period coming up with some reservations. So that it'll take at least that long for the money to come in to your account. And then we ask for 60 days after the deadline, just to give us additional time. So there can be an additional wait for your funds if you have sold in the past and receive the income quickly or rather quickly. And then just in general, initiating wind down activities to make sure the daily operations is concluded. So records management, human capital, financial management, communications and property transfer. So just everything that needs to happen to close down an office. So we'll be essentially closed down. I mean, this doesn't happen a lot in the department, but it has happened in the past. And so we'll be working towards that as well. Let me see. Yeah, so this next slide, Nick, are we able to unmute someone?
Yeah, I can unmute somebody.
Okay, Jonna Blackhair, Johna Blackhair. So we have a special guest, so Jonna Blackhair from the BIA, Deputy Bureau Director for Trust Services in DC. We'll talk about what the plans are, or initial plans for continuing land consolidation after the program. So Jonna, if you want to take over just for this slide.
Thank you, and hello to everyone out there. I have Lorna Babby, the Director of the Acquisition Center in Billings, Montana, on the line with me, and I believe Rick Zephyr from the Land Title and Records Office. If we have any questions, I just want to let you know that they're on the line, and then I'll turn this over to Lorna. But I just want to assure you that the successes and the continued cost effectiveness of the land buyback program and building out these processes have encouraged us and led us to seek additional funding for the continuation of the program for the Land Consolidation Office. The Bureau previously had this office established prior to the Cabell litigation and the settlement of those consolidation provisions. And so we'll just be picking back up those roles and responsibilities in the Office of Trust Services and the Bureau of Indian Affairs to consolidate the lands, to utilize the streamlined and standard processes and the automated processes that the acquisition has created within our trust asset account management system that minimizes the processing, the time, and the cost that we've been able to appreciate and make part of the reestablishment of the Indian Land Consolidation Program. So we're expected to work and transition with the land buyback program and mid-2022 with the remaining resources of the Cabell settlement in the land consolidation funds to fully expend those dollars. This will enhance our ability for tribes to plan and adapt for climate change and build out stronger tribal communities. Again, taking key note of all of the secretarial priorities that stand before the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Land consolidation and the acquisition of those lands is being high on that list, and it is going to fulfill the federal government's trust responsibility to protect and improve trust assets by reversing the effects of the redundant allotment policies. Excuse me. With that, I would like to turn it over to Lorna to briefly go over this slide and follow through with the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
I don't know if you can unmute yourself, Lorna, but if not, Nichlas, could you unmute Lorna Babby?
Absolutely.
Hello, everyone. Lorna Babby, again, the director of the Bureau of Indian Affairs Land Buyback Acquisition Center. I have been with the buyback program from the beginning, and it's been an incredible experience. I'm pretty proud of what we've accomplished in collaboration with the tribes. I'm proud of the customer service that we have prioritized in the acquisition center, working with the landowners and helping them understand the program and how our process works. And I'm even more excited that it looks as though we have the opportunity to continue this important work, because while the funding made available through the Cabell settlement gave us an unprecedented land consolidation opportunity, it was not sufficient to completely eliminate the fractionation problem, and lands will continue to fractionate after the buyback program ends. So now we have the opportunity to continue to address that going forward, and I think it's a good thing. And we have developed processes and procedures for the program that make this a much more user-friendly process, much more efficient. And I think a lot of people are familiar with it now. We've been at it for so many years that I think a lot of people out there in Indian country know what it's all about. We had to overcome some skepticism initially, and I think we have. So I'm just really excited that we have this opportunity, and I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone has. And that's it, Julius, unless you want me to talk about anything else.
No, that's good. We were getting some questions in the chat, but maybe I'll just wait to review those. Or if anyone else has any questions later about what might happen in the future, ask those at that time.
But thanks, Lorna.
So here's the upcoming schedule. This summer, we just mailed out offers to Turtle Mountain. Umatilla is coming up, Sisseton, Wahpeton, Oyate, Winnebago, Omaha, and Blackfeet. So this will take us into the fall. So we're after Blackfeet, if we have remaining funds, we do have additional locations in mind, and then we'll contact those tribes as we go forward. If we need to, if we don't have any, if we have more money left, I guess. That's how that'll work. So here's Nick. Are we able to have people speak, or is there a way for them to raise their hands, or not sure how it would work? Like if they wanted to share any kind of information with the program.
You know, we typically ask for people to participate through the chat feature. However, after you stop sharing your screen, if you'd like to go through a method where we could select people who are raising their hands, we could do that as well. The chat itself will be saved so that you and your colleagues will be able to review that information.
Okay, yeah. So Iris has a raised hand. I think. But we're also recording too, so we'll hear. I'd like to hear, folks' voices if I can. And like I said, I'll share this presentation, or Nick will share this presentation. But just in general, we're trying to get information from folks, landowners, tribes, tribal staff, land staff. If there is any feedback about the program, and because we're planning to, we'll have some kind of report. I don't know if it'll be public or just internal, but just, the work we did, how we did it, how we think we did, to help BIA move forward if there is a land consolidation going forward after the program. And just be aware that what you share, we may use in that program or departmental reporting. But also we have an email address and on our website if there's anything people want to share with us. So some things we're interested in is just, how are tribes using the land consolidated by the program, the program's impact to you or your community, even if you're not a landowner. Are you seeing any effects of land consolidation? Aspects of the program that could have been improved. There's a couple of questions about that, I think.
Julius, it looks like Roberta Connor has her hand up and she'd like to speak with you.
Okay, yeah, I'll get to her in a second. And then just any projects that may have taken place. So I just wanted to finish the slide deck because we're almost done here. But just let folks be aware of this, and then I'll stop sharing my screen, and maybe we can hopefully hear from folks. So that's just my question slide. So here's how to learn more about your particular situation or your particular land interest. Trust Beneficiary Call Center, the phone number. They do now have email capabilities. If you want to ask questions that way. But a lot of it is, they'll ask for, most likely you'll have to call in to give your personal information, and just links to your local BIA offices. And then the program, have lots of FAQs available, frequently asked questions, on our website. And so I think there's some questions in the chat that some of these would answer. So I think I will stop sharing my screen. Okay.
then video. So I think you can all see me now. So how can we get Roberta to, or I guess unmute her and then answer?
Julius, my comment, I do not have a question. My comment is directed to the notion that you are seeking feedback on the land buyback program in establishing a new office or reestablishing an office in the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So my comments are to the reestablishment effort. I will say to you that what the land buyback program has done has been enabling people who know nothing about where the tracts of land are located, know nothing about the leasing process, know nothing about the actual management of the property, who just are inheritance, to have an easy way to sell out without consulting with their family members, and has enabled the tribal government to become majority owners or complete owners of parcels that other family members are trying to consolidate. The consequence of that is that the land buyback program, while you may say it's working for individuals, it's really only been advantageous to individuals who are looking for a quick exit at the highest price. In particular, the pricing and the false assumptions of the appraisals has created a disadvantage for those of us who are trying to create our own consolidation within our families. So I am, as a former member of the tribe's land acquisition committee, we raised this a number of times to our tribal government. We raised this a number of times in land conferences. And to be quite candid with you, the false assumptions are going to continue. The false assumptions in appraisals about home sites, about access, and many others continue to be a detractor for those of us who are trying to consolidate family fractionated interests. So I really do not appreciate how this has enabled that process and caused families to become either further divided over this behavior of the land buyback program. The least informed, first to sell, those working hardest to consolidate, most likely to be disadvantaged by this program. I'm sorry that it has turned out this way. I'm sure Eloise is sorry it turned out this way, but that's the end of my comments to the new office that's being established.
Thank you. Let me see, Iris, do you have any comments?
I do not, Julius. I do apologize. I didn't even know that my hand was raised, so. But thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Roberta, for your comments. So we'll take those into account, or future program will take those into account. I know you had some questions about the appraisals. I think a lot of those answers can be found in the frequently asked questions. So I don't have specific answers to your comments, but I think you can find those, why the particular things are done or were done the way they are. You find that information there. I think I see one more hand, Adam Andrews.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to clarify that when the program began, there was a list compiled for specific amounts that tribes would be eligible for the program to participate in. That list, I presume, is no longer, or is it? I guess that's my clarification question. And then the next question is, you shared in your screen the summer, fall listing of tribes. So are those the remaining tribes that would be eligible at this point?
Yes, so your first question, in the beginning, when the program first started, 2012, under the Obama administration, their goals or plans were to try to spread the 1.9 billion around so that each tribe that's eligible has fractionated interests. 150 or so tribes would be part of the program. 1.9 billion is not enough to purchase everything that's out there. So there was a formula that was used to allocate. So it wasn't we were trying to spend that particular amount of money no matter what at that particular tribe. It was voluntary. So there was just kind of a rubric for the amount of money that we wanted to spend at a particular location before going to other locations. So when the administration changed, the priorities of the program changed. So in the settlement agreement, it's essentially secretarial discretion on how the program operates. And so we had, a secretary in 2012 that Salazar, decided to do it this way. And then when the Trump administration came in, they had a new secretary. They decided they wanted to do it a different way. And so there was a strategy review in 2017 that reviewed how the program operated. And from that, that's where the focus changed to focusing on more cost-effective interest at basically the larger reservations. So we saw earlier, the Great Plains is where a lot of the fractionation was. And so, essentially our efforts were pointed towards those larger areas with more interest and more landowners. So that's how we've been operating. As we come to a close, we're still operating somewhat within those restrictions, but we've also relaxed some so that we can purchase more interest at a particular or at the reservations we go to. And so that's the schedule that was reflected in that slide. So those, like I think we had 50 million left in the land purchases portion. And so that's what we have to spend. And, we might spend it at these next locations that was listed. And then if not, we have some other locations in mind after that. But we'll be getting in contact with those tribes as we move forward in our schedule to spend the remaining funds. So I don't know if you're asking if there's opportunities to be part of the program, but unless you're part of the ones that I listed or a few that are after that we might go to, we're not asking for recommendations of where to go next. BIA would have to decide how they want to run their program if they're able to, and I'm sure they'll take into account. It sounded like they were also going to reach out to tribes and get more feedback on how the process should go. But hopefully that answered yours for questions. Got a thumbs up. So I can go to this. Does anyone else want to raise their hand or have any questions or comments? Dave? Bigeman?
Yeah, thank you, Julius. I'm Dave Bingham, I am the Natural Resource Director for the Quinault Indian Nation, and we participated in the land buyback program in 2016, and it was extremely successful, way beyond our wildest thoughts in one wave. It did help the Quinault Nation tremendously in that one of the things that some folks know, some don't, we are located on the coast of Washington at the mouth of the Quinault River, and the sea level is rising. So we are in need of moving the village that we've been working on it for a while. And the land buyback program was helpful in purchasing allotments on the higher elevations for us to move the village, which we are still involved in. And the reservation, about 200,000 acres, was completely allotted. So the nation had very little land at all. We've had a long time acquisition program. We've made a lot of headway. So a question I have, this is, at least from the Quinault's perspective, has been an apparent successful program. And I know it was mentioned that the ILCP is hoped to continue, and just some questions about that. Is the ILCP hoped to continue on an annual basis with annual funding to do similar what the land buyback program is? Or has anyone talked to the administration to say, this was extremely successful and appears to be reducing the administrative burden? Is there an opportunity to refund it before it sunsets? And it appears that a lot of the probates are creating almost as many undivided interest as we're buying up right now through this program. So it's going to get as bad as it is now later on if we don't continue a program to acquire a lot of these small fractional interests. So just some interest in where the next move is going to go to ILCP or possibly the land buyback program regenerated. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, I just read a story recently about, well, I knew that's what you guys were going to do. I was with the program when Quinault was being implemented at, and I remember discussions about moving the tribe, I don't know, tribal housing or buildings or something. But regarding the future of the program, the link is in the presentation that we'll send out to the budget, FY22 budget. If you just go to doi.gov/budget, you should see some FY22 budget documents under the BIA budget justifications. There's talk, or there's a description about what the request is. So 150 million to restart or redo the Indian Land Consolidation Program. And so it's really just a request to Congress at this time. So there's no telling right now what's going to happen with that particular money, if it's provided, if there's other additional requirements, or whether it's, I think the request was for money to be expended. So it could be, if it is the 150 million and then it's gone, or there could, if there's tribes are advocating for something like this, that certainly they can do that on their own and talk to their Congress folks. But yeah, I have no idea what's going to happen after the program ends. Hopefully we'll have some better information, if and when a budget gets passed, hopefully in near future. That FY22 starts October 1. So hopefully we'll have information then or soon after. So hopefully that helps. And yeah, BIA is asking if anybody has any other comments or questions about the future of the program, or maybe comments. So we don't really have answers. Now would be a good time, and this information can be shared with BIA. Or if anyone has any or comments about the past operations, whether it was you thought it was useful, successful, or should be done a different way. I'm sure BIA will give other opportunities, but this was just the program's opportunity to get the information out and have folks have an opportunity to answer questions. Since we haven't been, there hasn't been any tribal land staff conferences, or I guess there was a virtual one this past year, and the 1 year before it was canceled. But yeah, just a way to get some information about the program out to folks. Iris, is your hand up for real this time?
I don't know why my hand is still up, and I do apologize. And I really appreciate everyone attending the Indian Land Tenure Foundation program. The appraisal division where I work is still working hard, and we'll see where we end up with the buyback program. It's been very rewarding. It's been an honor to actually work with tribes, landowners, and hopefully we can continue to assist. And as far as meeting some of the assumptions that was brought up by Roberta, we will be working on assumptions if we move forward into a system that's called the new Indian Land Consolidation Program. So these questions are very important to us. So if we move forward and there is the funding for the mass appraisal to continue, remember, we not only had mass, we also had site specific. And we would really appreciate any questions or comments if it is the possibility that this program continues. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Iris. Nieta, do you have a question or comment?
Hi, this is Nita Egotel Simons. I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but there are comments and questions in the chat box. There's a few.
Yeah, I can see them.
Oh, okay. I don't know if you've addressed any or not.
Okay. No, I was going to, but I wanted to give folks a
Okay.
chance to speak if they wanted to.
I was just looking at the time because I know you're ending this in about 10 minutes, correct?
Are we? I thought we were going 2 hours. Yeah, until noon. Or
Oh.
I don't know, Nick, did we have it as an hour and a half?
You know, we usually launch them for 90 minutes, but if we have people available and people are still chatting, we can go with the other half an hour.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, on my schedule, it was 2 hours.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Did anyone else have any comments they want to speak? Otherwise, I can go to the chat. So Tim Crone had a question about ILCP, and I think I answered it, but it's not. I don't think it's going to operate like it did before, where there were liens on the land purchases, and those liens were lifted from those previous purchases. So now it's essentially Congress or the taxpayers. If the money's funded, that would be paying for additional purchases after the program. Hopefully that answers your question. Chatted about Dave's, chatted about Adams. Andrew had a question about mappable tracts and tribes seeking assistance to improve mappable status within BLM. So in the past, we did, or BLM was assisting with the mapping and BIA took it over. And then BIA has since moved it to the regions. So how those, we're not doing in the mapping now. We have what we need to get appraised. So it'll be up to BIA to think about how they're going to do the mapping in the future. But I assume they'll reach out to the tribes, just as the program did, or BLM or BIA at the time in the past, to improve the mappable status of tracts. And so just the mapping just means there's a legal description in TAMS, and we make a GIS boundary layer of those tracts, so we know where the tracts are, and then have other additional information brought into GIS that are used in the appraisal process. And then some of those are, can be long meets and bounds descriptions. And so some of those, they were just not mapped, not meaning we don't know where they are. They just weren't mapped into GIS, for difficulty or other reasons. But most of the, typical square 40 acres, 120, 160 acres, those were mapped. mapped. We generally had over 90% mapping rate of all the tracks. So the vast majority of tracks are mappable, but there are some, just getting that information from TAMs. And so I'm not sure what BIA is currently doing, but that will definitely need to be part of the discussion going forward. Jonna, do you have your hand up?
Yes, just so everyone's aware, I have a branch of geospatial users that is managed under the Land Title and Records Office. And we provide direct support to regional offices for all mapping, and the Cartotech environment is also incorporated in that, so that we can have those maps available for title, so that we can make these transactions a lot quicker. And we place all of those individuals in all of the regions over the last year and a half, so that we can make further advancements. And we have a user group with some tribes that are compacted that also help share their information when we go into these types of transactions. So if you all have any mapping people, just reach out to your regional offices and coordinate digitizing any of those types of projects with those offices, and they can accommodate your requests, as well as fill the gaps where we have missing data. And I think Lorna, she can answer some of the questions that came up. She was not able to be unmuted when some of those questions and conversations happened a little bit earlier. But while she is on standby there, I wanted to also mention that with the probate issues that come up, we've had a tribal consultation last year in August and started wrapping up some of the updates to the probate regulations and working those through with the Office of Hearing and Appeals and our Solicitor's Office and through the department, and also updating TAMs so that we could reflect those transactions and start making those types of at probate support for families to do those types of activities that was discussed earlier about having the owner managed tracts and the consolidation of those types of tracts happen at probate. So notice to co-owners of a purchase at probate would also be provided through posted notices, and the request to purchase through all of those owners that are at that level for that particular tract, as well as notification to the tribe. But again, this program is all voluntary, and we don't prevent anybody from working with any family members, or any family members that are interested have the opportunity to seek support and technical information from those respective offices out at the agencies and the regional offices, so that they can learn more about these types of opportunities. So I will unmute myself if Lorna can also get unmuted next.
So again, I will add a couple of things. I'm looking through the questions here. And Dave, I'm not sure if your question in the chat was answered, but I can speak a little bit to that. The funding that has been requested for fiscal year 2022, that would be funding to continue the land purchases. I think that's what you were asking. I do want to say that the Bureau of Indian Affairs Acquisition Center also has the capability, if the tribe has its own funding, either through the previous Indian Land Consolidation Program, the recoup funds. There are a number of tribes that have accounts containing income earned on lands previously consolidated. This is prior to the buyback program. And if those funds, above a certain level, those funds can only be utilized for land consolidation. We have the capability to utilize our automated process to do land consolidation using those funds. And other funds as well, for example, income owned on lands consolidated through the buyback program through previous implementation at a location. We can also do that. So I hope that answers your question, Dave. And let me know, or let us know in the chat if it didn't. The only other thing I wanted to mention is with this administration, there is a focus in the funding request. There is a focus on supporting tribes' ability to plan for and adapt to climate change. So in circumstances like that, I really want to work with the tribe to help with land consolidation efforts for that purpose. And let me see. Another question.
Is that it, Lorna?
Oh, I was just looking at this question about the ETFA, the question from.
Yeah, I think the one, Andrea. Yeah, I think maybe Andrea, you had a question about improvements. So I'm not sure exactly what you're asking about the improvements. In general, the improvements, or like say a house, for instance, isn't valued because that's not going to be a trust. You can't bring a house into trust. So it's the land that's valued. And then the improvements are the access, access to electricity, water, things like that, road access. And those are valued. So I don't know if that helps or not. But I think the frequently asked questions under the appraisal section might be able to assist. Or if you want to come off mute and tell us what you're thinking or your questions are.
I guess I'm just not alone with Roberta's feeling, and I have a difficult time because I was the land buyback coordinator, and I felt really good about it because during those first 3 waves for Umatilla, we did not seek out any land with improvements. However, when I moved on, and I don't believe Umatilla is the only tribe that had deemed some generational homes, that are very intimate and very special to people, that, that the argument was, what is the definition of improvement? If it is an abandoned house, that to us is not a shack that just has no, you can't separate what we see and what we know of land as owned by our family for many generations and say, nobody lives there. It's just in the way. And a house that I was raised in with a earmarker at the basement that said 1852 has historical significance, and it was offered. And now the tribe owns interest in an allotment that was owned by all tribal members. And I know John and Iris are very aware, even when Santee was very aware, because although I was in the program as staff, it was very disheartening to see a place that was pre-treaty that was being offered, because they said, well, we're not going to touch the house. Well, you're making offers. And Roberta is one of those very outspoken Umatillas that is trying to buy small portions of it from family members that, like she said, some of them are just don't want to know about or have any really ties, you know, and unfortunately for a lot of the reasons that we've been colonized, there are a lot of people that live outside of this area that don't see the significance of it. And so when you start saying, well, we're going to do improvements, but this one qualifies because there's not really anybody occupying the home, and that gets a little sensitive. And mine, for example, I didn't want to be the example of land that was bought in buyback for a tract that should never have been on the list. Luckily, only one of my family members did sell in the offer, but the fact that it was offered on, it's really disheartening knowing that we're going to be sending out another wave of offers. And my question on that with the mass appraisal methodology, if my home where I now live on my allotment is listed, I have an improvement on there, is that, you know, how can I check that ahead of time before you start sending offers out? You know, I worked really hard to become a majority owner and needing to buy out the other owners. You know, I'm not made of money. I don't have a blank check in front of me. So just like Bobby had stated, how do we get assistance on wanting to do the work of buyback on a smaller level within our families, of trying to get to keep the interest in our hands and not put it out there for the tribe to land grab. And I don't say that's the intent of buyback, because of course I promoted and traveled all over the country to try to give people that information, but you couldn't do that just in the outreaches that we conducted. There was so much more work to be done. A lot of, you know, Auntie tells something and everybody believes it because Auntie is sending this information out, and a lot of it is misinformation. And I know you guys realize that when you see a lot of really brand new landowners that, you know, I became a landowner when my dad passed in 96. I became a landowner in 99 and didn't know a thing about what they provided me, you know, just a ream of paper. And I believe there has to be some talk about doing a better job. And I will say, had I not worked in land, I still don't feel like my tribe or the region, OST or whatever it's called now, I'm sorry, may have misnamed it, because I don't think it's out there yet, that it's the Bureau of something. We're still looking really uneducated as far as land ownership. My boyfriend right now is trying to look at land consolidation, you know, doing the small portions of trying to buy out the ones that don't live here. And those efforts are just seem like, I don't believe they go unnoticed, but it's a really difficult place to put us in without the assistance of you know, Chris is on here. He understands that we've been trying to talk about land exchanges. You know, we've been trying to talk about land trusts. We've been talking about other innovative things, but it is also very frustrating that we're kind of in the dark. And when these offers get mailed out, there is no outreach at Umatilla right now. And I did just get some mail yesterday, so I'm kind of thinking, are the other owners where I live and I have a home on getting offers? And I think that's, the transparency is very, it doesn't exist a lot of times. And I think, like Roberta, and she's left the meeting, it's hard for the landowners that are on these reservations that are trying to keep that land, trying to fulfill those promises that we made to our parents, our grandparents. And like I said, we don't have the, you know, the blank check in front of us to be able to sweep through. You know, I don't know if with Chris being on the line, if the land consolidation program, you know, the one Dave had led for some time, if that's still available, you know, where those resources are as far as helping the tribal members that do want to recoup that land and keep it in our hands. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks, Andrea, for your comments. But I think in general, you know, BIA I'm not sure if you guys are 638, we work with your own land department there. You can request, if you don't know who the landowners are, their names and addresses from the BIA. And, as long as you're an owner on that tract, they should be able to give that to you. And, try to make a plan to figure out, how to do these co-owner purchases. But like I said in the beginning, this, was for the landowners. And, obviously if they're not your family, maybe they don't care as much as you do about that particular piece of land. And that's just, the way it happened, in the past. And now they're the landowner and, they can make their own decision. But, if you wanted to talk to them, maybe you guys could work something out with them. But yeah, this good information that can certainly be passed on to BIA, or they're on the call here and they can think about how those kinds of things might be handled in the future. Yeah, I know we're over time. Does anyone else have any other comments or questions they would like to share? Okay, well, I hope this was informative and useful. And if there are any other comments or questions, you'll have the program's contact information in the slides that will be sent to you. And if you have any comments or if you have any questions about your particular situation, I would encourage you to reach out to BTFA, the TBCC, so Bureau of Trust Funds Administration, Trust Beneficiary Call Center, for figuring out what's going on with your particular interest, or if there are other things you would like to do with your interest, or get in touch with the other landowners. Certainly reach out to your local BIA Realty folks to get those questions answered. Yeah, I think Nick, just turn it back to you. I don't know if you have any closing comments, but yeah, thank you everyone for joining. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you very much to Julius, Jonna, and Lorna for their participation in today's webinar. These were great presentations, really good conversation that we had, but we should keep the conversation going. So, as the foundation converts and publishes these presentations and you receive that link in your email, feel free to leave comments on the video. They are public, people will be able to see them, but if you have any information that might have been a benefit to people who may be watching this program after the fact, please do engage. As a pretty extensive network, we want to see everyone succeed and to be sovereign. So we'll work on that together. The video will probably be sent out to you all next week, along with an evaluation link. Please fill that out. And if you have any suggestions for future webinars, I'm in the process of planning for the first 6 months of 22 right now. So now's a great time to get me some ideas. In the meantime, again, thanks to Julius, Jonna, and Lorna for their participation in today's webinar, and we'll see everyone next month.